Let's talk about exercise. I know a lot of us think, do I really have to exercise to lose weight? Why can't I just lose weight by dieting alone? Can't I just eat right and skip the gym? I don't want to go into the gym and lift heavy weights like Arnold. Plus, I'm too old now to lift weights. Well, here are the iron facts.
We always have the individual be like, I'm just going to diet. I don't need the gym. Gym's not for me. I don't need to exercise. I'm just going to diet. Well, I'll tell you what, that person is not going to do too well. You know what I mean? Because your body needs exercise. Even the government these days, they have literature now about lack of exercise is worse than smoking like, I don't know how many packs of cigarettes a day. That's how bad lack of exercise is for you.
So besides the food they eat, it is important for people to exercise because there's so many things that happen. One, exercise is called the number one antidepressant drug, I guess, because when you exercise, you make different endorphins. It changes the brain chemistry, which is huge. People that have been depressed and had anxiety, exercise has made a difference. It's great for stress reduction. People that are making cortisol all day long and they're stressed at work, exercising actually calms the brain, calms them, helps with cortisol. And then on top of that, when you exercise, you're burning calories. Like every time you're taking a step on the treadmill, your muscles are contracting. When those muscles are contracting, you're using glucose, meaning you're using calories. So really to have success faster and also to even look better by combining the meal plan with the exercise, that is a win-win. Because the other JAMA just came out with an article, but what it said is that low fitness is worse than people that have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, everything. Low fitness in the long run is worse than having, even if these people had, their blood work was great and they had low fitness, they were gonna be worse off for people that had terrible blood work, but they did exercise. So low fitness overall is worse. And when you work out, it's anti-aging.
Chuck Jurdinger earned his master's degree in science with a specialization in exercise physiology. Over the years, Chuck has coached over 1,000 people on how to move through the process of self-change. He is an expert on the acute responses and chronic adaptations to exercise. In the past, he worked with Labrada Nutrition and is currently a coach as well as a training director for the entire staff for the online program Lean Body Coaching. If you had any questions about the real scientific effect exercise has on the body, Chuck has the answers.
The reason why exercise is so good to implement with a good nutrition plan is because the physical activity of using your muscles triggers things in your body that actually upregulate nutrients. So you're burning more calories, of course, but it's actually the afterburn that comes into effect too. So when you work out really hard, let's say you go on an elliptical machine, you burn 300 calories and you're doing something like a high intensity interval training protocol, like the hills on a machine or something. If you're doing that and you're burning those extra calories while you're exercising, maybe that's 300, let's say, right, in 30 minutes or so, you're going to actually have an afterburn too. So all of that exercise is not only going to burn calories, but it's actually going to signal things in your body to help regenerate and recuperate muscle tissue, which is anabolic, means that it is energy using, if you will. So when we have things that are energy using and we stimulate them, it means that we'll be able to burn more energy. When you eat those healthy foods, you're going to be able to lose excess body mass that much faster.
As I mentioned earlier, when you have more muscle, you have a faster metabolism, right? And so one thing is, if you have a slow metabolism, you can actually pick it up by engaging in more cardiovascular activity and weight training. So just because you're starting off with a slow metabolism does not mean that you can't increase your metabolism through diet and exercise. Because remember, so for every pound of muscle that you have to eat 17 calories just to sustain it or thereabouts. And for every pound of fat you have, you only have to eat 5 calories to sustain it, because all your body's going to do is send blood to keep it alive. Now remember, if you drop 10 pounds of fat and you gain 5 pounds of muscle, well, that 5 pounds times 17 calories just increased your metabolic rate, and you pulled off all that excess fat, which didn't require that many calories to begin with. So you can actually increase your metabolic rate by increasing muscle. And I really see a lot of people increase their metabolic rate by getting back to some cardiovascular activity, because I do think it helps to level out hormones. It just does an amazing job at helping people's heart rate and circulation of blood. Remember, if your blood's circulating more, your metabolic rate's higher.
Nutrition's first and foremost, in my opinion, then we add exercise. And then there's a difference between cardio and resistance training. A lot of people might get on a treadmill because it's familiar, or elliptical, or a bike, or a Stairmaster, and they focus just on that. And they want to try and burn calories. Each machine obviously activates muscles a little bit differently, but for all intents and purposes, let's say a general treadmill, right? You can walk on it, run on it. By doing only cardiovascular exercise, you're really focusing on your heart health. And that's really, really important. However, you're not able to stimulate the muscle tissue in a stressful sense that triggers adaptation, if you will. So what I mean by that is, when you're jogging, you're going to take hundreds and hundreds of maybe thousands of steps. Whereas if you were to do a lunge and holding onto a dumbbell, you might only do 14 or 15 steps. And you'd be exhausted, right? So the purpose is, by putting the muscle under a more strenuous environment, it's going to have different adaptations to it. And those adaptations are growth and definition and density. All those people want the nice curves and shapes. Well, that's muscle. Not only that, resistance training has so many other abundant benefits to bone density increases, to ligament health, to tendons, longevity or mobility as we age. So resistance training is definitely a big plus.
Well, exercise, we have such a large body of work that shows conclusively that exercise can increase your longevity factors. It really reverses the aging process. I've seen people who literally look 60 years old, but they start working out, building muscle, eating right, and it looks like they knocked 10 years off their life. So exercise, one of the things that happens as we become sedentary is we don't have as much blood flow going, right? The circulatory system slows down. When you just go out and jog a little bit, power walk a little bit, lift some weights, you really get your blood recirculating. And when we lose muscle, we don't just lose the big ones, we also lose the little ones that keep the skeletal system in place. So when you exercise, those little ones, those little muscles that hold your skeletal system in place, can stay strengthened. When you don't exercise, they atrophy just like the big muscles. And this is why so many people, say in their 60s or 70s or 80s, fall over in the shower, break their hip, hit their head on a counter and pass away. Because eventually they lose the stability of what those little muscles create for you. And as they atrophy, your skeletal system becomes very unstable. And how many times do we see an older gentleman walking with more of a shuffle gait rather than actually taking steps? That is not, by the way, a natural act of aging. What you're seeing when somebody begins shuffling is actually a result of a lack of weight-bearing exercise over time as they aged.
And again, we talked about people who just think, all right, my exercise is cardio, which is great, you know what I mean? But I think in your formative years, you need muscle, you need strength. And how you get that is through weight training. And we talked about weight training is gonna strengthen your skeletal structure, and you need that. You don't want to be a frail old person. And sadly enough, even people 50, 60, 70 years, 40s, 50s are getting hip replacements now because they neglected the weight training. And it's like, oh, I'll run. Running's great, but I think everyone should engage in weight training. I think it's so beneficial to you.
I just believe that to have a overall good for you program, it's got to include exercise. It has to. It's a huge component. Nothing will strengthen your bones, build your muscles, contour your body, and give you the shape and tone like resistance exercise. That's weights. Resistance exercise is weights. And then your choices could be endless. Whatever you sort of tend to gravitate to, whatever you tend to do most often, whatever you tend to crave and want to do.
Now, one thing about working out that many people don't know, especially for anti-aging, Touch University came out with a study, and it says when you age, there's these different milestones that can happen to every single one of us. When we age, we lose muscle mass, we lose strength, we start putting on more body fat, our metabolism slows down, bad cholesterol goes up, good cholesterol goes down, you start having problems with temperature regulation, but there's 10 points. All these things happen as we age. But there's one thing that can reverse all of that. And what do you think it is? It's exercise. Exercise is in lifting weights and doing some cardiovascular work, the combination of the both is going to be anti-aging, and it's going to slow down or prevent or even reverse some of those milestones people might already be having.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million benefits to weight training and exercise and eating right. Whether it's be it combating heart disease, combating cancer, combating all the horrible life disastrous diseases, to prolonging your life, to healthy life. But here's one thing about weight training that a lot of people don't know. What the science says, your body can be burning fat efficiently after 2, 3, 4 hours later, which is it's unfathomable. It's like, I mean, I just trained so hard and my body's still burning fat. That's amazing. So there's a lot of things that are not measured, but you get better responses and better results by doing.
So people look on the machines all the time. They say, oh, I burn 200 calories, 500 calories. And first of all, those machines aren't accurate for many reasons. Because it's really just taking your weight and your age. But what it's not taking into consideration, what's your body comp? Like, say I'm 120 pounds and I probably have more lean muscle mass than another 120 pound young girl next to me. And if we're both walking on the treadmill, the more muscle mass you have, every step I have more muscle that's burning calories. So I am using more calories than someone else that has maybe more fat and less muscle. So it really isn't about your height and your weight when you're doing these things. So that's not accurate. But when you leave the gym, your body's still recovering. It's when you work out for several hours, your body is still burning calories from that workout. It's not like when you leave the gym, it's over.
Of course, with all things, overtraining is detrimental to, especially when it comes to physique development. It's funny, like training for yourself is unlike any other sport. If you're golfing, you can golf for 5-6 hours to perfect your swing. If you're surfing, you need to be in the ocean 4 or 5 hours just to get out there to catch the wave. But when it comes to your body, and there's science behind this, your body can only sustain 60 to 90 minutes of vigorous activity. After that, it starts to shut down, and the damage is probably too overwhelming. I mean, it leads to injuries, it leads to aches, it leads to pains, it leads to chronic pain that can happen. So if you're in the gym 3, 4, 5 hours a day, you better be working it, because if not, you're just killing yourself.
It's like this. If you really want to mess your body up and mess your hormone system up, do excessive cardio. Excessive. Talk to any triathlete, any cyclist. That takes its toll on the body. And so, again, what's the goal? If the goal, if it's a requirement for your chosen occupation or sport, you sort of don't have much of a choice. But if your goal is just to get fit, it doesn't require more than an hour 5 times a week.
My weight was at 150 pounds when I started my bicycle journey. I was averaging 8 to 10 hours a day cycling. And not just cycling, I'm balancing on the rear wheel. So you're using the whole body, upper body, lower body, everything you could think of, I'm using it. And so I noticed I started shrinking as I was going into my ride. And I was consuming and consuming and consuming. I was up to 4,000 calories a day. For someone my stature, that's a lot of calories. And I was still losing weight. When I finished the finish line, I was skin and bones. I weighed 130 pounds. I lost 20 pounds of muscle mass. It was ridiculous. It's been 3 months now since my ride. I'm almost back to my normal weight. It took me that long to get back to where I want to be. My strength still isn't there yet. I'm still progressing.
There's a point when people, they start exercising and they think, oh, this is great, and they want to exercise more and think of, well, they'll get faster results. Well, there's something called overtraining, and it does several things. One, it can actually increase your cortisol. I know many times when other athletes have overtrained, what you start seeing, you start putting on more fat. Because when you overtrain, you need time for your muscles to recover. Every body part, I say, whatever body part you're doing, give it at least 48 hours to rest, sometimes 72 hours, depending how hard you lift. Because if you don't give it that recovery, it's not going to recover. And if you start working out on muscles that are already fatigued, you're basically going to break them down. So now you're burning muscle and you're storing fat, then trying to build muscle and get rid of fat.
I would ideally suggest that your exercise program have a combination of resistance, a little bit of aerobic cardio, something that's fun, whether it's going to the dog park with your dog or playing with kids or grandkids. There needs to be some sort of active rest, I would call it. Things that you would do that, whether it's in the garden or out by the pool, or things that you don't even view as exercise, but lifting weights 2-3 times a week for 30 to 40 minutes in some form of cardio and a little bit of flexibility training.